Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely mind-bending. We're looking at a fascinating piece by Gaston Ray that takes cutting-edge simulation theory and smashes it right into ancient Hindu philosophy. If you've ever found yourself staring at the sky wondering about the true nature of reality, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
Do we live in a simulated reality? No, I know. That sounds like a rejected script for The Matrix, right? But the crazy thing is, this ultimate sci-fi question is taken completely seriously by today's top physicists, philosophers, and tech prophets. And, as you'll see, it's also a question that ancient spiritual traditions solved thousands of years ago. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the 1% rule, the consciousness bet, Nick Bostrom's famous trilemma, glitches in the Matrix, Maya, the ancient simulation, and finally, who holds the controller? Let's jump right down the rabbit hole.
First up, Section 1, the 1% rule, from Pong to building universes.
To really wrap our heads around this simulation argument, we don't even need to look into the deep, distant future. Let's just look at our own backyards, technologically speaking. Think back to 1972 and the video game Pong. It was literally two clunky rectangles and a pixelated dot bouncing across a black screen. Now, imagine a civilization, maybe us, that improves the realism of its virtual worlds by just 1% a year. Just 1%. Compounding is absolutely ruthless. That tiny gain doubles in about 70 years. Fast forward just a few centuries, and those little pixelated dots evolve into photorealistic, fully immersive simulated universes that you literally cannot tell apart from base reality. And in the grand scheme of the cosmos, that happens in the blink of an eye.
Moving on to Section 2, the consciousness bet, the hard problem of simulated minds. Here's the little secret that Hollywood almost always skips over. Rendering the graphics? That's child's play. The entire simulation argument hinges on one massive, absolutely crucial philosophical bet, and it's called substrate independence. Basically, it's the idea that consciousness is about how information is organized, not the actual stuff doing the organizing. So, if minds can run on silicon chips just as smoothly as they run on our squishy, wet biological brains, boom, the simulation hypothesis takes flight. But if they can't, if there's some magical, uncodable spark to carbon-based life, the whole theory completely loses its foundation. Because a universe with 8K graphics but no conscious minds inside isn't a civilization. It's just a really expensive screensaver. Okay, but let's assume consciousness is substrate independent. What happens next? You get this crazy inception loop. First, base reality builds a simulation, then the simulated conscious beings inside that world get smart, they invent their own AI, and they build their own nested simulation. It's like a cosmic Russian doll. But Gaston Ray points out a fascinating limitation here. This loop cannot go on forever. Why? Because computing budgets are finite. Every child simulation has to run on just a fraction of its parents' computing power. So, with each new layer down, the resources dry up. The worlds get coarser, they get cheaper, until the computer simply runs out of juice. There's no infinite descent. Which brings us to Section 3, Nick Bostrom's famous trilemma, Oxford's statistical trap. Keeping those computing limits in mind, let's jump back to 2003, when Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom gave this whole theory a really rigorous mathematical spine. It's essentially a statistical trap. Bostrom argues that you logically cannot hold all three of these propositions to be true at the same time. 1. Extinction. Civilizations almost always wipe themselves out before they reach the point of building these simulations. 2. Disinterest. Advanced civilizations could build them, but they just kind of don't want to. And 3. Simulation. We are almost certainly living in a computer simulation right now. That's the trap. You have to pick your beliefs carefully here.
The math here is genuinely staggering. Think about it. If you believe humanity will survive and not go extinct, and you believe we will be interested in running these ancestor simulations, well, the math becomes inevitable. Simulated minds will outnumber original biological ones by an astronomical margin. So think about yourself for a second. Right now, as a randomly chosen conscious observer, mathematically speaking, it is overwhelmingly, undeniably more likely that you are one of the billions of simulated minds rather than one of the lucky few original biological ones chilling at base reality.
Section 4, glitches in the Matrix. Can we actually test this? So to figure out if this is true, we have to pivot from philosophy to hardcore physics. Can a perfect simulation be falsified? Can we find a crack where an imperfect simulation might leak? Amazingly, yes, this metaphysical question has crossed into testable science. Physicists like Bean, Davudi, and Savage are looking for what they call the lattice signature. If the universe is rendered on a discrete grid, we might actually be able to detect that geometry in high-energy cosmic rays. Then you have Melvin Vopson's infodynamics. He argues that the way the universe tends towards symmetry looks incredibly similar to data compression, which is exactly what a computer trying to save memory would do. And lastly, the cost objection. Running a perfect universe demands impossible amounts of energy, which means the system has to cut corners somewhere. No definitive glitch has been found just yet, but the fact that we are literally searching for the seams of reality is mind-blowing.
Section 5. Maya, the Ancient Simulation. Silicon Logic meets Sanskrit Metaphysics.
Now here is where Gaston Ray's analysis gets truly spectacular. Let's step away from the cold logic of computer science and look at the millennia-old Sanskrit metaphysics of Hinduism. Enter the concept of Maya. It translates to the cosmic illusion. Now, it's vital to understand that Maya doesn't mean the physical world is totally fake or non-existent. It means that the reality our senses pick up is just a temporary projection. It conceals the ultimate reality, known as Brahman. Does that sound familiar? It's exactly the same unsettling conclusion the tech world arrived at. The world you experience every day is not the bottom layer of what is real. Ray brilliantly points out how perfectly these concepts map onto each other. Notice how the vocabulary of a video game aligns flawlessly with the rules of ancient Hinduism. In the technological frame, the reality is virtual reality or base code. In the Hindu frame, that's Maya. The game's physics engine, that maps directly to Dharma, the cosmic order. What about your score, your saved data and progression? That is exactly how karma operates, the law of cause and effect carrying over through your different playthroughs. And the ultimate goal of logging out or winning the game, that's moksha, liberation, awakening. The modern gaming metaphor is just a technological reskin of this ancient spiritual framework.
And Hinduism definitely isn't alone here. This sneaking suspicion that appearances hide a deeper reality echoes universally across human history. Think of Plato's allegory of the cave, prisoners mistaking projected shadows for real life, or Descartes and his evil demon deceiving his senses with a false world. I mean, just swap the demon out for a server farm and you have the Matrix. There's Zhuangzi's butterfly dream, dissolving the layers between waking and dreaming. Even in modern neuroscience, with contemporary illusionism, they treat consciousness itself as a sort of user illusion. We've always had this feeling that something is pulling the strings.
Section 6. Who holds the controller? The divergent exits.
All right, here comes the rug pull twist of Ray's article. The gaming metaphor is irresistible, but it quietly breaks down when we compare how Western tech and Eastern thought actually try to exit the simulation. The Western technological desire is all about escaping outward. We want to break out of the screen, we look for a glitch, a seam in the code, desperately hoping to bust into the external programmer's room. But the Eastern approach, specifically Advaita Vedanta, is about escaping inward. It collapses the whole distinction between the avatar and the programmer. It tells us that Atman, the self, and Brahman, ultimate reality, are identical.
There's this quote directly from the article that I just absolutely love. The technologist's exit is outward, to the programmer's room. The Vedantian's exit is the collapse of the very distinction between inside and outside. You see, these two philosophies rhyme so beautifully on the surface, but underneath, they disagree profoundly. In the Eastern view, you are not some helpless little avatar waiting for an operator to log you off. You are, already and entirely, the very substrate that was dreaming the avatar up in the first place. Which leaves us with this final, honestly spellbinding thought. If the screen, the hand holding the controller, and the observer were never actually separate things to begin with, is the controller itself the last illusion? Is there even an outside to escape to, or only the dissolving of the ego that imagined it was trapped? It really makes you wonder, just how much of our reality are we actively creating right now? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.